Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sequence Break, episode 15, Crowd Control with Jaku. And here he is, Jaku.
Hello.
Live and in person. Thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate it. So for people who might not be, what's your job description, or how are you part of the speedrunning community and streaming and all this kind of stuff?
I got involved in the speedrunning community when I created Warp World, and we can get into all that later. Yeah. But just as an introduction, I guess, I got involved in the Super Mario Maker community, and they needed tools and things and software to be built, and so I started doing that. And then the more and more I looked at speedrunning, the more I'm like, oh, I could definitely help out here in certain areas. And so I started attending GDQs. I've been to all the GDQs since 2016, I believe now, so quite a few at this point. And yeah, just speedrunning's been kind of something that I've always watched and kind of experienced on my own with friends, but it really seems like over the last few years it's become a big part of my life and has changed things tremendously. And
I can't wait to get into that, because it's speedrunning, I think, it's still on this crazy ride, and the story is not yet written, so it's it's pretty cool. And so are you the CEO of Warp World? Is that your job title type of thing?
Yeah, I'd technically be the CEO, founder of Warp World.
Cool. And we'll get into that in just a sec, because I'm super fascinated by the whole thing. But let's start off with what was your first introduction to video games? When did you start playing? What were some of the early games you played?
Oh man, it's got to be the NES and Mario. I feel like we had an Atari as a child, but that was in the 80s, and so very hard to really remember. But this distinct memory I have is my brother had a paper route, and I'm pretty sure he only had it for a week, and then before he bought this, but for a week he had a paper route, and then he came home with a Nintendo. My dad and him came home with a Nintendo one night, oh, it's your paper route money. And I'm like, you had enough money for a week of paper route? I want a paper route.
Yeah, right.
So I'm pretty sure that was more of my father's I want a Nintendo, and we're just say it's your paper route money. We'll never know the true origins of that. But I remember, Mario 1, I believe, was the only game that we had, but obviously it was a fun game. And I remember the very first night just playing it, and even knowing where that very first one up in the Mario level was. And I don't know if that was something passed down from my friends or brothers or whatever, but we knew. So it was really cool. And so some crazy night in probably 1989 or so.
So, so often the Mario comes up, especially with people around our age. Yeah. It's just Nintendo, Mario, that whole kind of thing. Can you remember, were you the type of kid, did you beat games or anything like that? Because I have very little memory of beating any game when I was a kid. So I'm curious if you had any of those.
Yeah, no, beating games was hard. Mario 1 specifically, I remember not beating for the longest time. Actually, the biggest memory of that game and beating it was the neighbors across the street from us. They had their NES on during a party, and the parents were playing it. The kids were not allowed to play it because they had got into World 8, and the mom of that family knew how to do the infinite life glitch.
Oh, cool!
So they got all the lives, and they got to World 8, and they got to the final castle, and I remembered them just attempt after attempt after attempt, and finally they beat it, and everyone was like, "Oh, we did it!" And then we found out there was a B quest. So yeah, that was really fun.
Your reward for beating the game is playing the game again.
Yeah, and it's harder.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I don't know what game I ever beat first. I would say it would probably be Mario 2 if I had to guess, because that was a lot easier. And I almost want to say that was the first game I ever speedran, because I remember knowing how to get through the ice level really quick and dodging all the flying guys and stuff. And so I think that might have been the very first NES game I ever beat. And I think it was technically the first game I ever speedran. But we rented games a lot because, games were expensive, and it was really easy because there was a rental shop 2 blocks down from my house. So,
oh, nice. Have access to all the games.
Yeah, exactly.
So In full disclosure for everyone, I'm a patron. I think it might have been in the first time it was available for Jaku's podcast, Warp World, and also I Got One. And one of the things you talk about, I love hearing your stories as a kid, because it sounds like you were breaking things from a very young age and just tweaking things, figuring out how things work. Is that actually the case? And when did some of that start? Like, when did that curiosity start to happen?
Yeah, I had been breaking things all my life. It started with taking things apart, TV remotes, VCRs, and things like that. My parents weren't so happy about that, but I could put them back together, and they more or less would work still. I think my uncle really kind of sparked that, because he would always bring me a lot of like old radios and things, and like they'd work in various states, and I'd be like, oh, well, let me take it apart and swap things around. So shout out to my uncle on that one. But it wasn't until getting a computer where I could really start to figure things out. And like this was in like the late 90s. Emulation was just kind of coming on the scene. And like I believe it was the NES emulator Nesticle.
Oh yeah,
which great name, great icon.
Yes.
If you know what we're talking about, but it had the ability to go in and edit the graphics or the sprites in the games. You could there was a palette thing and all sorts of stuff, and you could save it, so the ROM would actually save the sprite changes. And that's when I first realized, I'm like, oh, you can change stuff in these. I thought this was read-only memory.
Yeah.
And then it clicked like, well, technically yes, but you have access to the file, so technically no. And so like adding graphics were fun, but then I'm like, how do I add a text? And like I did the very first thing I thought, I was like, oh, I'll just change the graphics to be the text. But then that doesn't work, because if you change an H to a T, it changes all the H's to a T. And that's when I learned about hex and things like that. And so I actually started dabbling in like ROM hacking in 1999 or so, and messing around with like Mario 1 a lot.
Had you done any hex editing up to that point? Because we just recently started talking about this, and I didn't know. I'm so stupid. I've been a speedrunner for 3 years, and I just finally now understanding, looking at memory addresses and stuff. Did you know what you were looking at, or had you had some experience with that?
Not really. Not really. I think it was one of those things where I'm like, what is it that I'm trying to do? And like, there was no Google. But one of the things that I really did back in the day, because we didn't have cable modems either.
Right.
We had like dial-up.
14.4.
Yeah, exactly. I even had a slower modem because I couldn't get the 56K drivers working on the system for the longest time. And finding drivers online was impossible. But I would download text files. Tons and tons of text files, because they were instant. You click it and it's done, because it's text.
Right.
And it takes you hours to read, depending on the length. And so I think I found a lot of text files that just talked about hex and ASCII and other formats like that and things like that, and like just started reading and diving into hex editors and figuring things out. I figured out how to convert the like character tables, essentially, because Mario didn't follow a standard hex pattern for text.
Oh, I see.
22 could be A to Mario, but 20 is typically used for space. So like obviously they didn't do it because it was 1985. There was no standard for that. So I had to figure out what each letter was corresponding to the actual hex value in this game, and that was a fun little like it felt like a puzzle, I guess. And like puzzles were always so much fun to solve, and so it was like all these ROMs are just puzzles that you can solve in various ways.
Well, and that's, I think, a perfect way to ask about, so when did you start developing or coding or that side of things? Because I know that's a big part of what the Warp World offerings are and all that kind of stuff. So when did you start that process?
So I started probably in 2000, somewhere around there, messing around with code, and like, because like a ROM would be the compiled code, obviously, and like it's got everything built in, and so like that was cool and that was fun, but there was always limits to that. And like if you want to build your own game, you kind of could with that ROM, and we've seen a lot of tools now where like level editors and everything's out there, and you can make a game look completely different from what it was. But if you really wanted to, you had to kind of start from scratch or start your own program. And I was just always curious how these programs worked, and so like getting their source code and figuring out how to compile them was really a nice stepping stone to that. And I very much learn by like watching. I feel like I can learn on my own, but like if I can see somebody else do something, it makes things a lot easier and more clear in my head. So that really helped. And so I guess I started programming just like random programs. The very first program I remember building was a red box, and like this got me into like computer hacking in a way. But red box comes from the freaking days in the 80s and stuff, where you could play the tones into a payphone of you depositing coins, and the phone would think that you're depositing coins. Because it was all just signals generated.
Having flashbacks here.
Yeah, so like 70s and 80s, that was huge. And for whatever reason, I chose, I'd make a Redbox application for my first thing. It was nothing special. No, like it didn't work in this day and age,
right.
But just knowing that it could play the sounds over the speakers and stuff was cool. And so that led me down another path in life, which is really fun.
I can only imagine. It's interesting, like how it's phone freaking, right? I know it feels like we're taking a flashback here. I'm curious, like, so there's a surprising amount of overlap between speedrunners and software engineers, software developers, whether it's in the gaming industry or whether it's not. And I'm wondering, why do you think there is that connection between coding and development and speedrunners?
Yeah, I think we just all like technology, and like gaming, obviously huge technology. But I think a lot of us got into programming because of video games. When I was a kid, it was like, oh, I want to become a game designer. And that means I need to learn how to program, or a game programmer, I guess. And it was only later in life that I realized I'm not good at programming games or coming up with concept for games, but that's fine.
Right.
The skills I learned from this was great. And I think it's just that, like, everyone's like, I want to do this. How do I do this? And that's what gets you into programming. And then you find something a little bit more your style. And in the 90s, obviously, like it was hard to find information about game programmers and stuff. Like you had the credits, but you couldn't go to LinkedIn and find anything about how these people did things. And there'd be interviews in EGM and Game Informer and Nintendo Power, but they never got super deep.
It's funny you say that, because like my day job, I mostly do documentary work, and I was thinking of just how many conversations and interviews we might have missed because we weren't covering the game industry the way it is covered today, and all these great games from back in the day. I feel like I hope some of it gets lost. I mean, we've lost some of our giants over the past few years. So
yeah.
So I'm curious, what led you then? So when did you start dabbling in, or what led you to start dabbling in live streaming, and what was kind of your first couple experiences with that?
Oh man, so this is going to go back to like 2007, 2006 actually.
Oh, that's awesome.
I had moved to Chicago right out of high school, sort of thing, and probably spent after about a year, I got a job in Chicago, a second job. I had a job the first year, but I got a new job as an IT manager / admin guy. I was the only IT person for this consulting company, and I was really, I guess it was around 2006, 2007. But yeah, so I was just really interested in video games still, and because I had a lot more money, I was like buying up games and things as a child that I'm like, oh, I want to buy this game, I want to play this game. And like one of the games that I really wanted is when I was younger, but never got, was Seaman on the Dreamcast. Yeah, I was gonna say you're not gonna understand. And you're gonna be like, wait, what? But so in Chicago, I was like, it'd be cool if I had a fish tank, but I don't really want to take care of a fish, which is not a lot of work. But I was a 20-something, so I'm like, what if I could have Seaman running at all time?
24/7 Seaman.
24/7. Yeah. Now the thing with Seaman is you have to set the temperature in the tank. It has to be at a nice degree for him. He has to have enough oxygen, and you have to feed him every now and then. And so like if you leave it on for 8 hours, that tank's gonna go from like whatever it was to 0 degrees, and he's gonna freeze and die. And so I'm learning how to automate Seaman, the Dreamcast game, with a computer, with real hardware. And you asked like live streaming, and it's getting there.
This sounds awesome though.
So I'm like, okay, this is cool. This works now, but I mean, I'm at work a lot. What if I want to see him at work? And so I'm like, how do I put this on the internet? And so I put it on the internet so that you could, so I could see it, and it would be a live video, and it would use my bandwidth. Right. And I'm like, all right, well, this is cool, but what else can I do? And then I eventually made a chat room for it, and I I added the ability, and this is crazy. I added the ability for anyone that's in the chat to queue up to take control of Seaman. So you not Seaman himself, but the game. So they could add oxygen, change the temperature, or feed him.
So
and
cool.
and because Seaman's all about the voice, there was a text to speech module, so you could type in some text and it would say it to him, and then you'd hear what he says back over the audio. And so this is 2007 or so, 2006. Bandwidth was not easy.
No.
And so only 2 people at a time could watch live, whereas everyone else would get screenshots, updates.
Got it.
And so that was my first like foray into live streaming. And this was like, I don't even know if Ustream was around. It might have just started being around. But I found out about Justin TV. And that's when I created my account, and never put it up on Justin TV. But it was like a Twitch plays Pokemon, but it was Jaku's chat plays Seaman. And I had this dream of like having forums, giving forums access to control Seaman for a week or a month to see how he turns out. You know, like what happens if an internet forum raises a fish. It never got that far, but it was definitely one of those like, wow, live streaming could be a thing, and this could definitely be a start of it.
Okay, I definitely have some questions about this. First one, so I know Stormcrow is somebody I've had on the podcast, and he actually has run CMAD, so I'm actually kind of familiar with the game, which is pretty funny. It's mostly you just watch the fish, you know, and you're that's what it is. But so for your first channel that you built to yourself, you built your own Twitch, which is awesome. Were you using ICQ or were you using something? Did you build your own chat room?
It was actually, it was IRC.
IRC.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
So cool. That's so awesome. So you can already see some of the beginning of some of how this goes. And what a great idea to bring that online and everything, or to a live stream, like a service or anything. Because I'm trying to think around that time too. I can't remember the services that Justin might have been available, but I'm not sure it was back in 07. So.
Yeah, I think it was literally 2007, 2008 is when Justin TV came out. This is fun, and I'm going to call him out on this, but my former boss, he actually owned the website streams.com. And I was like, hey, this live streaming thing might actually be something. Like, could I have that domain or at least use it while I'm employed for this? And he's like, no, that sounds like a stupid idea.
Well, what the hell are you going to use streams.com for?
I know. Like, what? So I don't know where that domain is now, but yeah, it's like, wow, it's a $1 billion industry now. So,
well, if he was hoarding it, I feel like he could have sold that one for a good chunk of change. Yeah, no kidding. Little domain speculation there. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Okay, so after the C-Man thing, what were some of the first games then you took to Ustream or Justin TV before, or maybe even the beginning of Twitch?
Yeah. So I mean, that's when I actually like. At about that point is when my like information security passion really grew. And so I didn't get to dabble as much on that sort of thing. And so I did more information security, hacking, things like that. But the very first game that I actually would have gone on to stream was Mega Man 9 and or 10. I think 9 and then 10 on Ustream.tv.
Very cool. So you mentioned it. I do want to touch on it because one of the things I really appreciate about your Twitter is how you give out some really great security information. Something as simple like you're really passionate about two-factor authentication, and it's like it's these things that help everyday people like myself not get hacked, or at least at the best of our ability, you know, without having physical access and things like that. When did sort of that passion start, and how did you go down that avenue?
It honestly, like a lot of it got started because of the ROM hacking that I did, you know, because I had to learn how to do all that stuff. Like I was reading a lot about hex setting and reverse engineering other programs and things. And so that got me into just information security. And that actually led me to why I moved to Chicago. I grew up in Detroit, and there was no like information security scene in Detroit when I was growing up. There was a few meetings here and there that were supposed to happen, but anytime I went, like they were canceled or just no one showed up. So Chicago's like the second closest city that had these things. I'm like, well, I'm going to move to Chicago and start going to those because I know they're happening because I can talk to the people online. And yeah, so like I guess in early 2000s as well is when I got into that sort of thing. But it wasn't until like 2005 that like I could probably start moving this towards a career. And I think in about 2009 that it became a career.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate all the stuff that you disseminate out there, because it's like, it's super helpful things. And
Sure.
I've never had a hack, and I mostly because of a lot of things that I followed from watching your stream and the stuff that you tweet out and stuff like that, I would assume. So
Yeah, I mean, two-factor is really important. You know, having a password manager so that you have a unique password on as many sites as possible is really useful. It is a lot of work if you don't have any of that stuff set up right away or first, but as you do it and as you just knock them out, it becomes easier and easier the next time you sign into a site.
that's one of the best things I noticed, because I was a little overwhelmed by it when I first started doing it. But then you mentioned, well, the next time you log into the site, that's when you change your password. You don't have to do it all at once. And that made the task a lot less daunting when you approached it that way. So tell us a little bit about, if you don't mind, take us through the story a little bit. Like, what is Warp World and how did it start? What exactly is it?
Yeah. So Warp World started about a month after Super Mario Maker 1 came out on the Nintendo Wii U. I was really excited for this game, and I was, I said, like, I'm not a level, or I'm not a game designer or anything, but Mario Maker makes it easy, and like anyone can make a level. It doesn't have to be good. I really took on the it doesn't have to be good part when I made my levels, but I always enjoyed Mario, and like every time I played every level I was playing, like from the list of levels that Nintendo was giving me in expert mode, like they were fairly easy overall. Like there were some tough ones here and there, but like I'm like, this is good, this is fun, but like I want something harder. And it wasn't until Panga came out with the level P Break. This was the infamous level that like Kotaku and all sorts of news groups started writing about. Like, this is an impossible level. It took the creator 12 hours or 36 hours to create, and then it took them that long just to beat it as well. No one else can beat this. And all my friends that are like in the computer security scene were like sending me this stuff too, because they know I'm big into video games. And they're like, hey, have you beat this yet? Can you beat this level? I'm like, I'll give it a try. And I had no idea about the Twitch side of Mario Maker at this point, because I kind of stepped away from the live streaming stuff after Mega Man 10. And so I'm playing, and like I get the first clear on P Break, and so I tweet to Peng. I'm like, hey, I beat your level. It was fun. And he tells me like, hey, come to my chat on Twitch. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, oh, I got Jaku on Twitch. That's fine. This is perfect. So I log in and stuff, and we're chatting. And then I start seeing all these people are watching other people play Mario Maker, and all these other people are also streaming it. So that's when I got to meet Mitch Flower Power and Grand Pooh Bear. And I'm like, this is really cool. And everyone's encouraging me to stream, because like, you beat P Break, you can stream. I'm like, okay. But I started looking, and I started like noticing like people are doing viewer levels. Like they're like, hey, I want you to play my level. And the system at the time was, you go into someone's chat and you'd be like, you'd type !add, and it would link you to a Google Doc. And some people had it just straight up go to the Google Doc so anyone could edit. And then other people were a little bit smarter and had it go to the form, so you couldn't mess with other levels. But I thought that was still inefficient, because like it's taking you away from Twitch, and like it's not verifying that these levels exist in any capacity.
Right.
So you could add 30 levels and they could all be fake levels, and now you're wasting the streamer's time. And so I created Warp World, which at first we didn't have any way to get this level name information, but I was verifying that the codes were at least in the right format, because the format was easy enough to figure out. And so Warp World in its very first form in October of 2015, you would just type !add and the level code, and then the streamer would click start, and it'd pop up on the screen with the level name, or not the level name, but the level code and a timer. Very basic, very simple. And then as I started realizing, somebody might want to leave their level or replace it, I started adding more commands, and like it was all done on the web. So it was instant. No one had to download anything new. And then December of 2015, Nintendo releases an update for Mario Maker that says like, hey, there's a bookmark site now. You can go to our website and you can get the information of the level. And I'm like, oh, well, this is perfect. I'm a hacker. I can scrape websites. I can make, when someone adds a level to the queue, I can go out, scrape that website, make sure it's got information, and send that information back into the chat. And so that's what Mario Warp World was for the longest time.
It's so fascinating to me. I am not a coder or developer, and I don't pretend to understand most any of this stuff. But I'm curious: was this just a script that you had written, or how did the, if you don't mind me asking, what were kind of the geekiness of it early on? How did it work?
Yeah, with the original site was really simple. It was just like a basic CRUD database that would just go in and out. Like, hey, I'm going to take data, put it here. All right, I'm going to take data and delete it or remove it and things like that and update. But the scraping part was, so I had to write a special script that would go out and pretend to be a web browser, essentially, go to the website that Nintendo has and go to that level codes website. Nintendo, they weren't trying to block anyone, but the way they coded that site, it was the worst.
That's not surprising. Nintendo not knowing what to do online.
Right. So typically when you're scraping a website, like, or when you're looking at a website, you see text as a human. You're like, oh, that's text, this is text, and that's text. And for the most part, some of the stuff on the Mario bookmark site was text. But what they did was they used SVGs, which is just like a graphics format, essentially. Yep. To show the words, so that the font, the Mario Maker font that they chose, shows perfectly on all systems.
Oh my God.
And so that made things a lot more difficult to scrape. So instead of like finding the word P break, I would actually find tags with SVG details in them, and it would have the letter at the very end of this tag. So like I had to read all this stuff just to get the very final letter and then piece it together. So it made it a little bit difficult, but we got it within 24 hours. So it wasn't a big deal. And what was great is, again, because it was, all based on the website and you didn't have to download anything. People that were using the software the next day when it started spitting the level names back out to people, they're like, wait, what?
It's funny you say that, because about 2015 is actually when I started watching Twitch. And I just remember I thought it was a tool that Nintendo had released because it looked so pro. It was so professionally done. And I'm just like, oh man, this is awesome. So it was already well done even early on.
Yeah. And like I'm not a graphics designer by any means, but like I took a lot of advice from people and made it the best to my ability, and like it really did tie like the streaming aspect of Mario Maker all together. It was always fun like scrolling down the list of Mario Maker 1 and being able to just notice the warp bar up at top and be like 1, 2, 3, all right, 30 out of 35 streams are using this right now, and those 5 people are doing 100 man, so why would they use this?
It's very good point. Very good point. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that's great. I mean, even about the tools today, and we're going to get there. So how does that lead to what Warp World is? Like, how does this tool, how does Warp World happen after that?
Yeah. So after that, it was the first HGDQ that I went to as well. And that's when I actually met Mitch and Pooh and a few others. And, we started talking a lot and talking about like our visions for the future of Twitch and all this stuff in Mario Maker. And that's when we kind of like, oh, let's kind of combined in a way and become like, partners in this and continue to do cool stuff and get it in front of people. Grand Poop Air had recently became partner that December. And so like, he was on the upswing. He was definitely growing. Every stream you would go to, he'd have more and more viewers, which was great. And so it made perfect sense to work with somebody that understands the game and the community so well, and then somebody that understands that as well, but also has the technical side. And Pooh has the personality and the community side there. So like it made perfect sense to work with him.
I also, I got to say that one of the common things is the passion that you all have as well. Like every time I hear any one of you speak, even today, about Mario Maker 2, whether it's a positive or it's a criticism, whatever it is, there's obviously passion behind it. You guys love this game, but you also love the things that you're trying to do with it on stream and stuff like that, which I really, really respect. It's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, Mario 1 brought us all together. And like Mario 2 is a great game overall. It's got some flaws here and there, but like it's a continuation of the first game that brought us all together. So we're going to be passionate about it because it's changed our lives.
How does the original queuing system, the level queuing system, turn into multi-queue today? Because that's what I just started recently using it a couple of months ago, and it's a really powerful tool. It's really awesome, and it's so easy to use and set up. How do you get from there to there?
So this is kind of funny. But I guess the short of it, multi-queue is basically what I had built for Mario Maker 1, but for any game. So like if you're playing Smash Brothers and you want to play with viewers, they can add themselves to your queue as instead of a level, and that makes sense because there's so many other games out there. Like I'm like, this is a powerful tool for Mario Maker. It could be used for other things, and we actually had talked about a way to like move over to this new system a while ago, and it was we had a lot of discussions. We spent like an entire day talking about databasing, and it was a lot. It was like 8 hours of us around a whiteboard, like, all right, this is how it needs to be designed. And like, that's fine. I don't necessarily enjoy the designing aspect of everything, but when you're building a tool like that, it does make sense. But it got hard to get the ball rolling. And so it was actually, I believe, December 2018 is when I released multi-queue. And it was coded in 5 days because I was sick.
Of course. What do you do with your sick time? You take 5 days.
Yeah. Yeah. I was sick around Christmas time or so. And we had been talking about like this new system, this new queue system. And like Smash Brothers had just come out the few weeks prior to that. And I'm like, man, people really need to like be able to use something for that. And so I took some of the stuff we had talked about as a team, and I'm like, I'm just going to code it. And so multi-queue is a single page app that was literally coded in like 5 days. It's had some updates and stuff since then, but overall it was just 5 days of hard coding, taking all the information I've learned from the original queue system and making it better. And yeah, some features are missing because 5 days. But the framework is there to grow upon much further. And it didn't even have a name until I was telling the team. I'm like, yeah, I don't know what to call it. I think I'll go with multi-queue, I guess, because like it has multiple queues. And like, that works. So
as a marketing person, we would have had some thoughts on that, but no shit. no, but I think that highlights like the foundation was there with the original queuing system. Like it was so strong to begin with that, adding on features was just a natural step for it. So
yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the team? Like on the dev side of things, like how many are there of you, and what does everyone do?
Yeah, so that's a loaded question. There's a lot of us in a way. And then there's very few small. No. So I'll get down in the breakdown of the main team, I guess. So it's myself, Grand Pooh Bear, X Water, and then you have Falcon Red, who you've never heard of, I'm sure, which is fine. And then we got Saturn, Moni, we have Carcat Games, we have D to the Fourth, we have Mr. Disagree, and we have if I forget anyone, they're gonna kill me. Why can't I think? I'm pretty sure there's one. Oh, we have Navitz, who is X-Water's brother, actually.
Oh, cool.
And then Cami Wing is our new graphics designer. And so like we have a bunch of different people in a whole bunch of different areas at this point that are kind of helping move the company forward. The multi-queue and Warp World is all pretty much done only by me right now. There's a plan to start a fresh rewrite in about April of this year with and Chud Breeder. Can't forget Chud. So we're good now. So he's going to be one of the big proponents. We're actually building some frameworks right now. We're very much in the early stages of redoing our entire authentication system for all of our sites and all of our services, because all of these apps currently have always been designed as like, oh, you want to use multi-queue, you go to Warp World. You want to use crowd control, you go to crowd control. You want to use OneUpCoin, you go to oneupcoin.com. And so like, that's nice, but that really leaves a lot of our users unaware of our other services. And so our first thing is we sneak peeked a new website design at new.warp.world at TwitchCon, which will also be launching soon. But as we fill that out, we're going to be redoing our backend. So our authentication services and then our messaging systems between our services are actually going to get a lot better. But yeah, either way, there's a whole lot of people doing a whole lot of stuff. It's tough to really get into it because a lot of us do multiple things. At least that's the dream with this rewrite. It's going to be me giving a lot of knowledge about the queue system to a few other members, so that we can add more features a lot faster and a lot more often without me having to find the time to do it.
When I got onto your technical support Discord, it reminded me a little bit about startups that I've worked for, and that it felt like a startup culture where it seems like a lot of different people are pitching in wherever they can. And I thought, first of all, that's really cool. But secondly, because you're the one who answered my tech support question. But then secondly, it's like that's the kind of thing that happens, I think, when you're building these things.
Yeah, we're all really passionate about the stuff. I would probably have the most understanding of all the services out of everyone there. And that just makes sense because every single one of them I've had some code in. Whereas like Cat, he's only really touched crowd control, which makes sense. But overall, like we make sure that we always try to reply to people on the Discord as soon as possible and help out as much as we can. And if we can't, we can tag somebody in that probably can help.
So I think most people at this point know what this is, but what exactly is crowd control and how did this whole thing start and get to where we are today?
Yeah, so crowd control is a Twitch extension that allows viewers to interact with streamers' games live. And by interact, I mean send effects into their game, such as give the player full life or make them invulnerable for 30 seconds. Or maybe just straight up kill them, because you're probably going to do that.
Because that's the fun part, but
yeah, that's the fun part is the bad stuff. But it allows you as a viewer to kind of send effects that are positive or negative into the stream, and see them happen in real time using Twitch bits.
And how, like, what was the original idea? Like, this is it's like taking trolling to the next level, but in a really fun and exciting way. How did that idea come about? And how are we, like, how did it come about? How did the idea come about?
So this idea came about from two sides, actually. I'll tell my side and then I'll tell the other side. Myself, Grand Pooh Bear, and Xwater had at one point, we were doing a giveaway, and I believe it was a Switch giveaway, or it was a Mario Maker giveaway. Oh, you know what? I think it was a Wii U, actually, but it might not have been. Who knows? We were given a giveaway, and we were trying to figure out how to make it fair with our numbers. Because obviously, Grand Pooh Bears can have a lot more users come in than me or Xwater. And that's fine.
Sure.
He's a great guy. He deserves it. But we wanted to make sure that the people entering, like, because they could enter per team. And we wanted to make sure that was fair in some way. And so what we did was we did a Mario Party, and I want to say it was Mario Party 2, but I could be wrong. We did a Mario Party 2 stream, and we set all the players to CPU. I had Donkey Kong. I think Xwater had Green Dog, Yoshi, and then Pooh actually got the other two players because he had the most submissions.
Okay. Yeah,
and we felt that was pretty fair.
Yeah.
And whoever's character won, then the prize would be pulled from that streamer's pool of users.
Cool. Yeah, that's cool.
And so Donkey Kong won. And it was not rigged. It was running on my system, but it was not rigged. But that gave me an idea of, like, what if it was? And what if like chat could have done it? Like, what if chat could have been cheering in chat to, like, change Donkey Kong's difficulty to hard and everyone else to easy so that he'd be better suited to win? Yeah. And so we started thinking about that idea. And then a few months later, Carcat Devs, Carcat Games, he actually came out with what he called bit races, which worked with Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past randomizer, who he's one of the main devs on. So it was a perfect fit for him. And he actually, the way he came up with it, he was talking with somebody and he said, I bet I can monetize trolling. Like, he's like, I bet I could make money off of trolling. And they're like, okay, prove it. And that's how Bit Races was formed. And so it's very similar to what you see today, but it was all done through chat. And so you can go into chat, you type !free. And then if you want to send kill player, you type like !effect space kill player space player 1 or 1. And it would deduct. And you do it in a cheer, I think.
Right.
Or no, you had a balance. You didn't do it in the cheer. He kept something that we 100% are behind. He had a coin system, essentially, just like we do today.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was coins, though. But the idea was, like, if an effect doesn't go through, you still get refunded. And you can't just do with bits.
Right. And I remember seeing bit races early on, and what it reminded me of was like Twitch plays, but like better and like more options. And there was a little bit more, more things were happening, and that wasn't just people arguing about what the next move was going to be,
Yeah.
And so it seemed like a really cool next logical step of what that kind of interactivity could be.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really liked it. And so we talked with him about it and told him what we were doing. And it just made sense for us to combine forces to make this one extension. Because one of the things that Twitch Plays Pokemon and Bit Races had against it is that it cuts out all chat interaction with the streamer.
Yeah.
Like, if you're playing a Twitch Plays Pokemon, who cares? You're not actually talking to the person. And if you want to talk to somebody in chat, you take it to DMs.
Right.
But if I want to talk to a streamer, I don't want their chat to be flooded with commands and not see it.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, it just made the most sense to build off of his framework to get things in the position they are now and using the extension. And we knew we couldn't use the Bit Races name because it had bit in it and Twitch doesn't like that sort of thing. And that's fine. And so we had to come up with crowd control. And this was like a month or two of this. This was not as easy as multi-queue.
It wasn't 5 days on a sick break.
Yeah. And what I really like about this is that it also keeps the double letters of like Warp World and CC crowd control.
Nice.
Like, and
see, now we're getting into the marketing stuff. I like it.
Yeah,
okay.
We don't try to do that, but if it works out, it's great.
Yeah.
But we had like crowd controller or controller, all sorts of stuff. And then just one day, I believe it was Grand Pooh Bear, who was like, guys, crowd control. And we're like, that's it. We're done.
You're not going to top that. It's not going to get any better than that.
Yeah.
Well, it's super fun to play along and to watch it and to enjoy it. One of the things, I got to be honest, that blew my mind was when I don't remember who I saw it and when it happened first, but watching it happen on real hardware, that just like blew my mind. And I'm curious, how did that happen? Like, what were the steps to make that possible?
Yeah. So I believe the very first version of Bit Races, well, maybe not the first version, but definitely the early versions did work with the SD to SNES. And
maybe it was Bit Races then.
Yeah. But yeah, Bit Races, crowd control, that's just like the coins and the refunds. That was something that we wanted to keep and is very fundamental to us because we know speedrunners love their hardware. Emulators are great, but like you can't get better than original hardware. And so the SD to SNES has a USB port in it, and it actually lets you communicate in various ways. And so another developer named Red Guy, he actually built the interface that works between the SD to SNES and the computer. And so I believe our code's built off of that, essentially. And he's a great asset to the community, and his code has been great and has helped us move this forward. But yeah, it's all through the SNES as opposed to going through an emulator. And it's really exciting. We actually just teased on our Twitter today the NES support, hardware support with the N8 Pro.
This is like a perfect timing also because you announced Zelda 1 as well, which I'm sure everyone's going to love because like that's such a, like a lot of the other games, it's such a classic game that is like perfect and right for this.
Yeah, that's going to be like, that's definitely going to be the first NES game. If all goes well. I will always preface that just because things can go wrong. But that'll be the first NES game that we support hardware-wise that will be done by the end of this month.
How do you, I mean, are you able to, is there any way to, I guess there has to be a way. How do you go about testing these things to make sure that they work on the original hardware and with like the N8 Pro and things like that?
We all have the N8 Pro, or me and Kat have the N8 Pro, so we're the two testers. And then Dieter the Fourth, I believe, has his coming. But it's just a lot of us testing as well. So like emulator helps a lot with that as well, where we can like, all right, do the effects work? Yeah, okay. Do they work in hardware? Well, let's find out. So it's a lot of sleepless nights. Every effect pack that we do will go through a pretty in-depth Q&A process. Where like one of us will be playing and the other one will be watching on Discord using an extension that allows us to do that. So we can trigger the effects just as if we're watching on Twitch, but simulate that same sort of interaction and experience and just see what could end up breaking. And we do miss some things, obviously, because some games are big. Mario 64 is a huge game. 99% of the stuff will work fine, but there might be that one edge case that we just didn't think about. Mario 3, who would have thought that the Piranha World 7 would be like the level that messes up the most? But yeah, it's just there's definitely a lot that goes into testing, and like I feel bad for Kat sometimes because we always have him do most of the coding for the actual effect packs. We like to keep that one person, maybe two people, because it's a lot simpler for them to keep it all in their head. But like me and Saturn will go and be like, Kat, this is broken, this is broken, this is broken, that's broken. And I feel bad for him because like it's not anything he did. It's just we need to account for other things. But like we're throwing all this stuff at him, like it's broken, man. Fix it, fix it, fix it. And if people could see the side of what we're doing on this side, like they'd be like, wow, number one, I believe, but I think overall they'd be impressed just because like there is a lot that goes into this, and we love all of the games that we support currently, and like it's just so much fun. So it's always just fun to see these games like broken in fun ways. You
recently just released, I think it was some new effects for Super Mario World, if I remember correctly. Yes. How do you get? Because first of all, they're so different for all the different games that Crowd Control supports. How do you go about like coming up with an idea for the new effect or for the next effect?
Yeah, we always try to keep like a base effects, base level effects that should work on most games. You know, kill player, give lives, give power up. That's simple stuff. But a lot of times we definitely have to just look at like, well, what does this game have that a different game doesn't have? And you know, we added D to the fourth to the team back in December, and he has a really great understanding of Super Mario World. Like he knows that game probably better than Nintendo at this point. And so he just was able to be like, hey, I can do this to this, I can do this to that. And we're like, yes, let's keep going. And a lot of the effects that he actually did, a lot of the screen type effects with like the sprites and the brightness stuff, that's actually all NES stuff or SNES stuff that can work on any SNES game. So we might start moving some of those to other games, but overall it's just he has such a good understanding of these games that it really helps us figure out more things. And then like SimCity, that's a random game that like was one of the games that I just randomly did over a weekend because I was bored. And I'm like, SimCity is a fun game that I grew up as a kid playing. What can I do with SimCity that's like not just take money and give money? And I brought out the hex editor. You know, I started looking at the code and things. I'm like, all right, well, I can do all sorts of crazy stuff. And that game really lends itself well to Crowd Control because it's not a game you would think would be fun with people watching. And typically, like, people don't want to watch other people play SimCity, but if they can destroy your city, they're going to love it.
Oh, absolutely. SimCity is one of my favorite games of all time, to be honest with you. And I've really only ever played the first one. Do you have a preferred version of SimCity?
Super Nintendo SimCity is my favorite.
Nice.
I got it for my birthday. I went to Best Buy, skipped school that day because that's what I do for my birthday.
Gotta.
And it was between that and Super Bomberman. And Super Bomberman came with the multi-tap. And for some reason, my child head was like, yeah, let's do SimCity. Let's be a mayor. But yes. That really shaped things for me in ways I don't fully understand.
It's probably one of my first like experiences with like what felt like an open world. Like there was this open canvas that you could just create anything on, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of mind blowing.
I remember trying to do like pixel art essentially.
Oh yeah.
In the map and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah. Absolutely.
So cool. I have family and friends who have no idea about speedrunning, but they love catching the games done quick. Like that's the one thing they know is games done quick, these live events and stuff like that. And I got to say that the demo this year was just like so much fun and exciting to watch what you guys did at AGDQ this year. What does it take to like live demo something on that scale and raise an incredible amount of money that you guys did for charity, which is awesome. But what did it take to pull that off?
That was, oh man, we had been talking about getting into GDQ literally all year. So in all of 2019, like the beginning of 2019, we're like, how do we get this to a level that GDQ can handle this? Because our very first like launch of the software with Grand Pooh Bear and I believe Ryukar, it was like 500 to 1,000 viewers, and it had some problems at that level. And we figured out what those problems were early on, and we fixed them like within like a week, which was great. But even still, we would go to other streamers that had then 5,000 people, and there could be some bugs would pop up here and there, and we're like, what's causing this sort of stuff? So like we really started throughout the year just optimizing as much as we could in areas that we knew were a problem. We cached a lot of information that we knew that we could cache, and just stop worrying about looking up. So that reduced a lot of load. And this is not necessarily a problem that you can just throw CPU power at. We did throw CPU power at it for GDQ just in case, but in test, like we just made sure everything we were doing was absolutely necessary to be done. And if it wasn't, how can we remove it? And so it just was a lot of that. And there's still a lot more we can do. But we, at the end of it all, we were testing in December or so. In our testing, we were able to send like 10,000 effects a minute to ourselves, which would never happen in the real world. But we got prices in the billions of coins amount.
Oh my God.
They scale up, and like we started at one coin cost, and then like it started costing billions of coins to do stuff. And so like we were able to send 10,000 plus effects a minute, which was pretty great. Because we were not going to hit that at GDQ, but we wanted to make sure. And it was only at that level, like consistently, that we would see like large CPU spikes. And so for GDQ, we saw like almost nothing, like in testing. It was so calm. It was so nice. And shout outs to ESA as well. Because we actually did a Link to the Past randomizer run at ESA earlier in the year. And that was the very first test for the price scaling and a large audience like that. And so they gave us the chance to kind of prove ourselves on that. And we actually will have 3 crowd control games at ESA next week. So I'm actually flying out to Sweden again, literally on Tuesday. And so we're going to be showcasing 3 more games there at ESA.
That's so cool. I watched the ESA run. It's on YouTube in preparation for this, because I was like, I want to see what does it look like in different types of situations. And I'm glad to hear that it can scale even larger, because I ran a game at GDQX this year. And when I went over to the TwitchCon side of things, I should not have been surprised, but I was surprised at how small speedrunning is, and how there are bigger charity events and bigger marathons than the GDQs out there. And so the fact that this could scale up to that is amazing. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. And we put GDQ on its own server that we gave 32 CPU cores and stuff, and and it was overkill, but it was something like it's not going to cost us a whole lot to do if we do it this way, compared to if what's the worst cost? This, or it crashes, and we didn't want to take that chance, so we did as much as we could. But the idea would be that eventually we don't have to worry about moving these events to their own servers and stuff. It runs as if anything else, and we're getting to that point for sure.
Well, it was super impressive, and I'm glad that I just, especially because it was a long run. I mean, was it 3 or 4 hours that this thing went on?
3 hours 42 minutes or something like that.
And it didn't seem like it ever hiccuped at all. And when I saw the final grand total number, I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe it survived all those bits.
Yeah, there was one point where it definitely crashed, but it wasn't necessarily. It was because an effect got sent at the right time, but also the wrong time. But the software itself never crashed.
Right, it wasn't the software. Yeah.
The major hiccup we did have though is through. So we have a messaging system on the extension that will let you know if a user's being refunded or something's being pooled. It will announce to all the other users like, hey, Kill Players just had 10 coins added to it. And that messaging system we actually use is from Twitch. And that wasn't able to keep up with all of the users.
Okay.
And so, yeah. And so we would say, hey, Kill Player's been updated 10 coins. And then it'd go to 10 of the users. And then 5 minutes later, they'd send a message that was 5 minutes old to users. And it would then decrease the value because it's not what they thought it was. And it was just so that's and so that's something we're working on replacing completely. So we're not relying on Twitch on that side of things. But it wasn't required to function, luckily. It was just this looks a lot better if it does, though.
Oh, it's really cool that the thing that you're putting in place here is able to take on some really large requests. And I'm a charity guy, so it's awesome that you could do it to raise money for, even if it's just for a stream but for the charity side of things. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
Jaku mentioned the crash literally at the same time that it happened. I'm showing the display video. So.
Oh, that's great.
So that's perfect. That's perfect timing. We planned it that way.
Lie and be like, what crash? There was no crash.
There was nothing there. Perfect timing. Well, I'm glad that's so cool that it happened. If somebody wanted to implement crowd control on their own stream and try it out themselves, where can they go to do something like that?
Yeah, they can just go to crowdcontrol.live. And we have guides for every single game. You download the software, you follow the instructions, and you're done. There's a few caveats. Obviously, if you're affiliate or partnered, you can just start using it. If you're not either of those and you're just like looking to use it for your own testing on your own PC without streaming, you can still go into the software itself and send effects. But if you're trying to stream with it, you do have to become Warp World Pro from our Patreon. And that will activate the extension on your channel as well. So users can get coins and do it that way, because you can't transact bits without those two, without affiliate or partner. So it's kind of a moot point, but it's a way to let people still use our service where we can still support them.
So we can't wrap this up without talking a little bit Noid. And I didn't even check. Are you still the world record holder in Noid at this point?
I hope so.
Yeah, I was about to say, I didn't check before the stream, but
I don't know what madman would try to get it.
There is something evil and awful about Noid, but before I taint anybody's opinion with it, what the hell made you decide to ever try running this game in the first place?
Noid is a game from my childhood that was really hard. I never beat it as a kid. I don't think I ever made it past the skateboard level, and if I did, I never got past the sewer level. The
skateboard level was definitely where I stopped. I got hit.
Yeah, and so it was definitely just like, it was this game as a kid that I'm like, this is such a weird game. It's based on a mascot of a pizza company that's no longer their mascot for various reasons, and like, I don't know, it just had an appeal to me because, like, I don't know, he's an awkward guy. And so, I was like, let's do this. It was a game that had an under 30 minutes world record. And I've mentioned before, like, I don't always have a whole lot of free time. So like 30-minute speed run, perfect. I can learn that. I can play that. And so, I don't know. I also like the music, and the platforming is actually pretty solid. And so, I just talked to my stream. I'm like, hey, we're going to play Noid. And it became a thing. And, after like 2 months or so, I was able to grind the world record. The first and only sub 20 minute and sub 19 minute run.
And still the only sub 20 minute run right now on the leaderboard. A question for you, because I agree. Okay, I will give you that the platforming actually isn't terrible, especially once you get the hang of it and stuff like that. Yeah. But it's got this crazy RNG game at the end of certain levels. What the hell is this? I don't understand this game at all.
Well, so I mean, if you follow my Mario Maker career, I was very much on board for RNG based levels in Mario Maker. Like I had Magic Koopa bowling, Magic Koopa tennis, and like it all required the Magic Koopa's stupid magic spell to hit a block and turn the item into one specific item you need. And so like that was RNG. Like you gotta love it or hate it, but like I'm like I embrace it. And so like I've put myself through the worst RNG things. So like Noid's nothing in that regard. But yeah, the pizza game's really stupid. For those that don't know, you have to challenge the other local Noid, who's just another Noid, different color. And you have to eat more pizzas than him. You each have, like, you start off having to eat 12 and he has to eat 15 or something. And you get these cards that you can select from. And it's like, okay, I'm going to eat 3 pizzas. He's going to eat 3 pizzas. That cancels each other's out. Nobody eats any pizzas. So you always have to throw a higher number than him. And the cards you get are random. The cards he gets and chooses are technically random. They're based on your score and the time that you enter the bonus round at. So actually in my run, and I don't know if it actually did it or not, but I always hesitate just a second or so, not even a second, before entering that pizza game in the very first level, because it's the easiest one to kind of force. But it forces him to select one card, like all 1 pizza cards, more often than not.
Oh, interesting.
Which
RNG manipulation.
Yeah, so very little RNG manipulation, because I'm not about to learn that for all of the levels.
Oh yeah.
And if anyone does, like, yeah, they could probably beat the record by quite a bit, I would assume. But
there's the path. That's the path.
Yeah, that's the path. The real path is to get perfect pizza games, because I only had 1 pizza game that wasn't perfect in my speed run, and I missed 1 glitch that is actually named after me.
there's a Jaku glitch in the game.
There's a Jaku glitch because in the game, so the game has a really interesting way it starts you off. In most levels, you actually start above the screen. But if you jump on the very first frame of that screen transition, you will actually jump and you won't land on the ground as quickly. There's power-ups in the game, and the main power-up is called the Noid suit. And this makes you faster and invulnerable to things. And if that suit runs out in midair, as long as you keep jumping, if you're only on the ground for one frame and you jump, it doesn't actually go away. Like, at least your speed doesn't decrease and your jump height doesn't decrease. And so if there's a transition, there's a circus level, you get this Noid suit, you jump up and you teleport and you play whack-a-mole with the Noid. And technically the game state still registers you as having this suit on, even though it's definitely gone. And because the next level starts you off in the air with a helicopter like attachment, if you can pull off that one frame jump right then and there, the Noid's never going to touch the ground in that level at all, because he's always flying.
Right.
And so you can beat the level by an extra 15 seconds.
Oh, geez. It's huge.
Yeah. So and you can do it twice in the game. There's 2 helicopter areas. And so I discovered that on stream, and I instantly knew what kind of triggered it, because I had known about that one frame jump glitch, and it was like, wow, this is awesome. So they call it the Jaku jet.
That's actually a good name for it too. I like that.
Yeah.
Currently your world record is looks like it happened 2 years ago. How long did it take you to grind out that world record? How long had you been playing the game?
I think I had only been playing the game for about 2 or 3 months.
Oh man.
It was a lot of playing though. The very first run I did of the game, where I actually finally beat it, it was like a 45 to 50 minute run. Because it was still brutal the first time. And then it just like kept getting like 22, 23, 24. And then just one day after a raid with Dragon Feeney, I'm like, well, all these people are here, I got to put on a show. And I was sick again. So like, there's something about me being sick.
You do your best work.
I do my best work when I'm sick. Yeah.
So I'm convinced that you don't sleep like ever, just from the amount of stuff that you do in your life. Would you ever consider speedrunning a game ever again, or taking on, if you ever have the time again to take on a speedrun?
Yeah, I actually did try to speedrun Noid again in December, I believe. Oh, wow. We did like a one-off stream.
Yeah.
There's a few other games that some people have asked me to take a look at, and I'm interested. And I'd love to, because I miss the streaming side of things. I think one of the things that really makes Warp World and all of our stuff really work is because we're passionate about what we're building. We're also passionate about what we're building it for.
Right.
And like being on Twitch and streaming gives us so many ideas and so many opportunities to think of things. That by not streaming, I'm actually doing myself a disservice right now, because like something could be happening that would tip me off as like, this needs to be done. And so I really hope to find a way to do it. I've been joking around with some other members. Like I have a crazy trip scheduled right now. If everything goes as planned, I will be in Sweden from like Wednesday basically to Sunday, be back in Chicago for 2 days. And then I go to Boston for Wednesday to Sunday. And then I'm back in Chicago for 2 days. And then I go to Tokyo from Wednesday to Sunday. And then I'm back in Chicago for a little bit before going off to California for a bit. So like a lot of stuff's happening right now. And so like it's hard to find a time to stream in anything like that. So as much as I love streaming and want to continue doing it, I think it's a lot better use of my time, obviously, to continue moving Warp World forward with these meetings and these things I'm going to, than it is for me to personally grow my own stream. But I do think I am hurting us a little bit by not streaming as often. But luckily, we got a lot of streamers on our team to help fill in those gaps.
As much as I miss your stream, I'm really thankful and appreciative of all the stuff that we get because of that. So it's like, you know, I appreciate the trade-off of everything from that.
Sure.
So, and I don't think you rarely miss podcasts. So it's like you still get that side of it and those type of things.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I always try to do. I'm probably gonna miss next week's though.
Oh, damn it! Unsubscribe. No shit.
No, you jinxed it. Yeah, we're see. I might try to do like a remote segment for them. I might just record like, I'm live here at ESA and this is what I'm reporting on now, and we'll go with that. I don't know. I'll talk to them about it tonight.
So, if people want to look for Warp World, we already talked about crowd control. Where can people find Warp World, yourself, anything like that on the web?
Yeah, warp.world is our domain for Warp World. I love the domain. You can find our Twitter, though, at just Warp World. Crowd Control's Twitter is just at Crowd Control. And then you can find me pretty much Jaku anywhere. Twitch, Twitter, not the domain, though. Sadly.
God damn it. How do you not have the domain?
The guy wanted $10,000 for it like 15 years ago. And I'm like,
what?
No.
No way he's getting that.
So, yeah. But yeah, Jaku, Jaku.
Very cool, man. Thank you so much for giving me the time and taking the time to chat about this stuff. I always find it fascinating, and I can't wait to see what you all do next. I'm sure it'll be fun and exciting to keep playing with and watching it.
Yeah, not a problem. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. If you're enjoying the podcast, please feel free to share it with family, friends, and leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. All of those go a really long way to helping out the podcast. Thank you so much. Have a good one.